So the federal government just declassified nursing as a professional degree. And yes, it's as ignorant as it sounds. So let's have a little chat about the Department of Education's new policy redefining what counts as a professional degree for federal student loans. Because it's unbelievably incoherent, structurally damaging, and honestly a case study in cognitive incompetence, okay? So what the rule actually does. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act requires the DOE to create new borrowing caps and new categories, okay? So far, so normal. The problem appears in the DOE's proposed classification criteria for professional degree programs. So under the new rule, medicine, dentistry, law, veterinary medicine, pharmacy, professional, okay? But advanced nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language pathology, respiratory therapy, physician assistant studies, not professional. Yes, the people who literally diagnose, treat, prescribe, rehabilitate, and keep our hospitals functioning are not considered professional for federal loan purposes. Now, why is this cognitively illogical? Let's talk about cognitive architecture, okay? A professional degree is defined by educational intensity, licensure requirements, advanced clinical competency, direct patient responsibility, and regulated practice. Every one of these fields meets or exceeds those standards. If you compare a doctor of occupational therapy, an OTD, or a doctor of physical therapy, a DPT, to say a JD or PharmD, the academic demands are on par, sometimes even harsher. These are programs with gross anatomy labs, clinical rotations, neuroanatomy, pharmacology, evidence-based practice, national certification exams, state licensure, and continuing education requirements, okay? The omission isn't just wrong, it's cognitively misaligned with reality. The policy design is a failure, okay? Good policy requires coherence. This is incoherent at a foundational level. They use an outdated CIP code logic from iPads, categories never designed to determine professional status or loan eligibility. These codes were built for reporting, not financing. They conflated program titles with professional status, degree names with occupational complexity, and paper categories with real-world labor markets. That is categorical misalignment. It's a common failure mode in poorly designed bureaucratic systems. What does it show? It shows a lack of systems modeling, workforce analysis, cognitive mapping, and basic administrative literacy, really. There's a whole labor market reality that they ignored as well. Like right now in the United States, we are facing catastrophic nursing shortages, burnout across allied health fields, rural health collapses, massive wait lists for OT, PT, SLP evaluations, and the greatest elder care burden in our nation's history. And the DOE looked at that and said, let's reduce their ability to borrow for school. Genius. That decision is not data-driven. It is not integrative. It is not aligned with workforce forecasting. It is bureaucratic improv, not policy, okay? We have 40 years of research on just how students choose careers, okay? Identity formation, exploration versus foreclosure, career adaptability, developmental readiness, socioeconomic constraints, self-efficacy models, longitudinal pathway shaping. People don't always find their final profession at age 18, okay, or 20, or 25, or 44, you know. This policy assumes perfectly linear trajectories, no career changes, no exploration, and that only certain fields deserve investment. This is an extreme misunderstanding of developmental psychology, okay? So what's the real world impact here from this? And this is for everybody, okay? Not just poor people, okay? Reduced access to high demand clinical professions, more students priced out, increased socioeconomic stratification, more burnout in existing staff, reduced care availability, longer wait times, worse chronic care outcomes, higher long-term costs to the healthcare system. This decision doesn't just misunderstand the profession, it directly harms the public. Okay? Directly harms the public. So what does this tell us? It tells us the people making these decisions don't understand academic rigor, licensure systems, healthcare ecosystems, labor force economics, or cognitive development. In short, this policy displays a fundamental ignorance of professional reality. And the consequences are not theoretical, they are structural. If you don't know the difference between a clinical doctorate that keeps hospitals running and a paper category from an outdated spreadsheet, maybe you shouldn't be restructuring the Department of Education. I'm Abby Jo Adams. I read the data. I understand the system. And I'm done watching federal policy operate on WWE logic.